Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news, and, well, Two Blokes Chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
I've known this bloke for a number of years and absolutely delighted to hear the news during the week, not for Nick Del Santo, obviously, but for Patrick Hill stepping up to be St Kilda's senior matchday coach in the AFLW. He is very kind enough to join us on a Saturday morning game day. Good morning to you, Paddy.
Morning, Neil. You got me?
We've got you. Thank you very much. And first of all, congratulations on your ascension, albeit at the cost of COVID. But it's a great achievement for you, and our congratulations to you.
Well, thank you. It's for one day, mate. So
yeah, but it's an acknowledgement of in my mind, some of the amazing work you've done in women's footy over the journey, and I'm just really chuffed for you.
Yeah, I appreciate your kind words, and there is I'll be lying if I can say there's a little part of me that's quite happy to get to this level, I suppose. And even if it's for a day, it probably means something, and something I'll probably look back on later on in life and say, well, I got to the pinnacle. It may have been for a day, but that's okay. It's like standing on Everest for one day and then going back down.
Yeah, well, you've at the end of today, you will have coached more AFLW games than Rob and I combined, so that's got to be an achievement, I would have thought.
Paddy, I just want to talk to you about, you've done a lot of work with in men's footy, obviously, for a long period of time, and taken on one of the pioneer coaching roles in women's footy right from the very start. But as far as your position today as a coach from VFL type level men's footy to the women's footy, how much different is the preparation around women's footy to men's footy, if there's any difference at all?
Look, the preparation probably depends on the group, and that's not whether it's a men's or women's team. It depends on where your group's at. And I remember going to Frankston and trying to bring in the same preparation we had at Box Hill, and pretty quickly worked out that I had to just tone it back a little bit and concentrate on ourselves more than I was concentrating on opposition or anything like that, or trying to change game plan like you would normally do for an opposition. Just because the group wasn't ready, and it takes a while to get there for the group. So I don't think it's as much about whether it's a men's team or a women's team, because I've had some women's teams that are really capable of taking on a lot of information, making subtle changes to a game plan week to week to suit the opposition while still holding the integrity of their own game style. And that they can do that quite well, but I've had other groups that can't. I've had men, same for the men's, particularly at Box Hill, we could adapt and shift and change however we wanted for a week and without it affecting performance. But, a young group of Franks and I sort of had to tone it back a little bit. And then as they got more experience, you're able to then adapt a little bit from week to week. So, yeah, to answer your question, it's probably more the level of the group and where that group's at.
So, pluck a number out of the air, and it's hard to, I know, but what percentage of your game plan wouldn't change versus what would associated with, depending on who you're playing, say, for example, in at the AFLW level like you are at the moment?
I would say, particularly today, we would probably want to be doing 95% of our own game style. So we call it game style as the way that we want to play, and game plan is what we would adapt on a weekly basis. You can fall into a trap of trying to change to the opposition, and that sort of really pulls apart from your own game style. So, particularly today, 95 to 100% will be how we want to play, but that's probably speaks a little bit about where our group's at the moment. We've just changed our game style a bit, so we really need to focus on that. And it's not a reflection on our group and their intelligence and ability to take that on. It's probably more we haven't given them enough time to settle in our own style to start adapting it too much. And I've said it before, and I've been guilty of it before, trying to adapt to the opposition, and you just lose the whole integrity of what you're trying to achieve. So, the best teams I've had, probably that might be 80-20. You'll have a couple of different ways of getting things done, and maybe that's how you defend. Do you all get behind the ball, or do you stop them switching the ball? And that would depend on how that other team wants to play, and you're trying to cut one of their hands off and make them play one-handed, and some teams can do that well, and others sometimes you just got to pull back on that and get it right for yourself.
Paddy, a couple of questions. You probably need to answer the first one first. With women's football, watching from the outside, there looks to be a pretty big gap between the best group of five down to the last five in the team. Therefore, if you lost two of your best five, it would change the way you play. But is it a fair assumption to say that the balance between the very best and the least good in a women's team at present is different to the better end of the men's footy?
Look, it's a tough one to answer. Look, I think that gap is decreasing. I think it's certainly decreasing. Probably when I first got in, there was a really big gulf, and I sort of noticed that, what some of the really good players in the competition, and think about the Darwin players of around that 2015 to 17 era, that made up a lot of the pre-signed players in the AFLW, and what your regular player that was playing AFLW at the time was like, and there was a really big gulf. But that's closing all the time, and if I look at our list now, it's really, really even, and it makes for some really tough discussions on in selection, because they all bring something unique, but there's not a big gulf there used to be. But I think there's some merit in what you're saying, that to lose some of your best players, they're not easily replaceable. But I've probably always been a coach that coaches system more than personnel, and obviously you'd always like your best players out there because they can execute that system the best. But you're going to be, as a coach, you're going to be in for a lot of tough times if you're reliant or you base your game style on the attributes of one or two people. So I think you have to make a game style that anyone can contribute to and role play within, and then hopefully you keep your best team on the park, and you can just get it done a little bit better. But it's really not an excuse not to be competitive. It's just a factor that you have to take into consideration.
And on that same level, the Alistair Clarkson thing of, you lose a soldier, another soldier comes in and takes their place. Are you confident enough that the depth in women's footy allows you to do that, or some at the bottom end, are you really still focusing on some more basic skills for the individuals rather than them executing their own skills and then automatically picking up the team message that you're talking about?
Well, look, I mean, I've spent a lot of time at Hawthorn and Bucks Hill, so I'm a fair believer in the one soldier out, one soldier in. I probably come from a school of thought that's less about coaching individual skills, and they are important, but more about making those skills easier with better movement and better receivers. So if I can put players in a spot to make the kick easier, I think I'm going to get better value for money teaching the receiver to help the kicker out than, because changing kicking actions and improving skill on that level, while you've got to do it and you keep working hard at it, it's a long, long process, particularly if you're taking on players that are already 19, 20, 21 years old. Trying to change their skill is really hard work, but improving game plan and improving their understanding and footy IQ can happen really quickly. It's a little bit different if you get a player that's never played before. Teaching them to kick's not the hardest thing in the world, and I think that's why we find the Irish players come in and thrive, because there's no preconceptions or, without getting too technical, the myelin that happens in your neurons in your brain are already fixed, and to change that means you've got to create new habits, and that can be really, really hard to do. So, I think the skill level is certainly improving within the AFL. I get out on a regular basis and I run around with these girls, because they're always, with 30 on your list, you're always short to have some match practice. And I'll tell you what, I was never the best player, but they certainly run rings around me, and I have a hard time keeping up with them. So I think when you're in the cut and thrust of it, in a game with these girls, you probably realise how good they are. It may not always look aesthetically pleasing, but I reckon if you grabbed any men's game, any local footy or VFL game and put on the TV, you'd be picking holes in that as well.
Yeah, and I think, obviously I can remember that fateful day at Geelong, 7 years ago now, Paddy, where we came down and watched the Box Hill girls go out on the ground for the first time. They didn't score a goal, and I can remember at that stage we had bike riders and we had netballers and we had all sorts of people learning the game, and now we're seeing people coming through, and obviously the pin-up girl down in this neck of the woods is Nina Morrison. She's been playing football consistently. So rather than playing until she was 10 and then going and playing something else and then coming back to the game, there's that ongoing building of skills and experience and game knowledge, I guess, that would naturally make the game a better spectacle and a better game to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, there is no difference between the young men coming in and the young women coming in.
Yep.
People look at AFL players like they're this really high footy IQ young man, but the truth it couldn't be any further from that. They go up playing local footy, and NAB Cup's not about game style or game plan. Certainly not AFL ones anyway. It's about individual development and giving every kid a fair chance at competing to see who the best is for draftability. So they come in just as raw on footy IQ stuff. So we got some girls coming in that really know their footy now. It's been unbroken. Their skills are of a really good level. They're fit. It's a pathway that's been available to them, so they've put the work in behind the scene. And you're right, Neil, it's far different to the players we had in Game 1. But even those players in Game 1, I think 7 or 8 of those went on to be drafted and became very good players. And people like Chantel Pereira had never kicked a footy before, has just stepped away from footy at the moment. At the ripe old age, I think she's about 35 now, but she was very successful for the West Coast Eagles. And the bike rider was Emma Mackey, and she had a really good career for 3 or 4 years. Jay Van Dyke came through in that team, Rosie Dillon, a lot of players, Julia Cockagills as well, all went on to be drafted. So
yeah, Melissa Kais.
Looked pretty at the time, but they're looking all right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that then opens the other door, Paddy, and that is that is it next season we get 4 new teams into the competition, and therefore another 125 girls that are going to get their opportunity on top of the ones that are playing at the moment. Is the talent pool deep enough?
I've got concerns. I won't say it's not, because there's people out there working their butts off to make sure there is. There's a lot. The NAB League coaches are doing a great job producing a lot of really high talent at the moment. So, and there's some girls busting their butts at VFL level, just waiting for an opportunity. So there's going to be some really good players come in, and I'm really wrapped for them. But I do have concerns. We probably still haven't established the last lot of inductees into AFLW. There's some draft concessions given out last year.
Yeah.
To those teams in Geelong, probably the biggest beneficiary of it, and it looks like it's helping already, and that's great because we want a really strong competition. I'm probably more worried or fixated on providing a really good competition rather than the actual skill of the competition. I think, in my mind, it doesn't matter what a competition standard's like. If it's good competition and people are competitive every week, sport's always good. So I think we need to look after that really well. So I'll be interested to see how it plays out. I think Essendon and Hawthorn are in for a tough time. Girls are very, very loyal, and it's very hard to get them to move clubs. So hopefully both those clubs are able to get some real talent in the door and bolster that up with some VFL players that have been unlucky and some NAB League girls at the top end, and that will be great for the competition if that happens. But getting that high-end talent in the door is always tough, and St Kilda struggled to do a little bit, and Geelong hasn't had it easy since they came in, and they were probably a little bit before us, so it will be tough.
Because I think the other thing too, if you look at the clubs that are going to come in, they've all come from a men's perspective as being very successful clubs, certainly within living memory. They've all won premierships, they've all got very big supporter bases, and they're going to expect success pretty quickly, aren't they? And yet, by definition, it's going to be a little bit of a struggle, at least for a couple of years, you would think.
Neil, and we were talking about 2017. I remember my first experience going to Box Hill, and Hawthorn was underwriting everything, so it was great. And I honestly thought the old VFLW back then with the localised teams, I thought we'd just have to I just have to mention that I'm coaching at Hawthorn, and Bob's your uncle. Everyone would want to come over and use the great facilities, but it's really not that easy in women's footy. It's much easier to get men to move. And I had some criticism about lack of loyalty in women a couple of years ago, which I found to be laughable, to be honest. They are really loyal to their friends. They want to play with their mates.
Yep.
They want to stay at their club. And I know of examples of someone like Di Haynes that would drive past 20 clubs to go from Roval to Diamond Creek because that's where her friends were, and she wanted to play with her friends. So it is hard to get them to move. You can't just say your name and expect that girls will move, because to them, a lot of them, that means nothing to them. They're more about how they get treated, how they're valued as people, and what systems the club's got in place to look after them and truly see them as sportsmen and people, and that'll be the defining factor on whether you get people and whether you retain people in women's footy.
Paddy, there's exceptions to the rule, of course, but already there's been some criticism of a lack of female coaches in the system, and it logically, it's going to take some time for the female coaches to develop as it is the players. But are you pretty confident from what you've seen around the traps that 3 to 5 years we're going to see a lot more female head coaches in the AFLW?
There is no reason why a female could not come in and coach an AFL men's team if they are properly prepared. There will be plenty of great females come in and coach in AFLW. There's a lot that are playing at the moment, and that's probably the biggest issue, is the ones that are going to be the best are probably playing at the moment. But coaching, and I don't want to enter the argument whether there should be more or whether there should be less or what's going on. What I'll say is coaching is about experience, and it's about making mistakes, failing, learning from it, and getting better. It's about understanding how to pull levers in a game, what you've got at your disposal to change the way that a game's happening. It's about an emotional intelligence that allows you to not get too upset or too happy, just to say nice and relaxed. It's about learning to build relationships with people, and it takes a long, long time to develop the skills. I worry that if we push people, whether that's a male or a female, into positions they're not ready for, we're not setting them up for success. And we've seen that in men's footy for a long, long time now. We take people out of the game. They're a champion player. We think they're going to be a champion coach because obviously if they're a great player, they must have a high footy IQ and a high emotional intelligence, and we put them in and they fail. And we wonder why. And it's because they just don't have the experience required, and they haven't gone through the process that you need to go through to make your mistakes at a level that's not going to be catastrophic to your career. Now you put someone into an AFL job before they're ready. They've got 1 or 2 seasons to get it right, and if they don't, they're on the scrap heap forever. And that's not setting people up for success. So my hope is with some of the great females that are going around that are loving their coaching and getting involved in it, I hope that they give them the time and the space to develop, and that they put their hand up when they truly feel that they're ready to take on all the responsibilities that come with coaching, because it's far more than developing a game plan or coaching on match day.
There is the wisdom of Patrick Hill, and I absolutely could not agree with you more, Paddy. It's great that you've been able to take some time out of your day today. It's a very, very big day for you, Tara, and the kids, and we are just so excited for you. I know how much work you've put into this over the journey. Yes, it is only for 1 week, but hopefully it's a stepping stone to something great in the future. Thanks so much for taking your time out of a Saturday morning. I had no idea that this was going to be the Saturday morning when we chatted earlier in the week, but we're absolutely chuffed for you, and thank you so much for taking time out to have a chat to the two blokes.
No, I really appreciate it, Neil. And as you said during the week, look, I think you've been a great friend and supporter of mine for a lot of years now, and there was no way I was going to pull the pin on you just because I had a busy day.
Love your work. We will chat soon. And guess what? I think I might break a rule today. I don't normally watch games of footy that don't involve a maroon and blue jumper. I might sit down and watch one this Arvo.
That would be good, as long as you cheer loudly, Neil.
Oh, well, it's the old thing about barrack for anybody, my team, and anyone who's playing Collingwood. I should be pretty right, shouldn't I? Thanks, Patrick.
Good on you, Paddy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. you. See you, boys.
There he is. What a great opportunity that was to chat with a bloke who's about to walk out onto Victoria Park, of all places, and coach his first ever AFLW side. Well, obviously, we're thinking of Nick Del Santo and his well-being, but just a terrific bloke who's done so much for women's footy in Victoria, particularly, and we couldn't be happier for him.
Yeah, I like that. I was very keen to get that question about the coaching, because I think the criticism of just saying, "Oh, there's no female coaches, it's not fair, it's men taking over the sport," but that's, to me, illogical for all the reasons that he's so beautifully articulated as to why that's not the case. And that time will come, there is no doubt.
Oh, no doubt in the world. And, it's this question of quotas where, in some instances, quotas work. Some instances, quotas are saying, well, why are you putting someone who's not adequately prepared for it?
Correct.
Just because they tick a box.
Yep.
Clearly, you and I have got this program because the Pulse wants to maintain a demographic of young presenters and good-looking ones.
No,
that's not the right.
No, we're doing it because they couldn't get anyone else.